Signs everywhere, the signs. I don't know why that song just came to my head, but welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Thursday. Appreciate you being with us. Brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar, located right next door to Southern Stone on Patterson and Rogers. An incredible selection of hard-to-find wines, great wines, with a sommelier on staff to help you make that pairing. Kyler Staley from thehoosier.com joins us now to talk a little bit of IU basketball recruiting, following up on Media Day that just completed up in Minneapolis. How's it going, man?
Going good. How are you guys?
Cannot complain. Justin Schutte, he won't complain. He's not a complainer.
Oh, I'm a big complainer. I just don't let people know about it.
What was your take? Usually don't get a lot out of Big Ten Media Days other than we had a ton of great content. And again, make sure you go to thehoosier.com and because it is tons of content there that is actually exclusive content that we're the only ones where you can find that from the breakout sessions with the Indiana guys, the Mike Woodson, and any other coaches as well. Talk to Terry Moore, everyone. Grace Berger was up there as well. But yeah, what was your takeaway, man?
I mean, honestly, I watched a lot of different interviews, a lot of different things with different coaches. But to me, it just felt like there was a new energy with this Indiana team coming into Media Day. There seems a lot more confidence in them. You know, Mike Woodson, Trace, and Race, they all said some really great things, about the upcoming season and what they expect, what their goals are. Mike Woodson talked a lot about, Jalen Hood-Schifino, just the roster that he has. But it just seems like, this Indiana team's got a lot of confidence coming into the season. They are going to take it one game at a time, and they can continue to, build towards what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, they can do that. But no, this year just felt a little different. I think the coaches kind of realized that, Indiana's coming into the season as kind of the favorite. They're going to have to go through Indiana. Illinois is going to be right there with them. Michigan's a dark horse, in my opinion, as well. But, just a different feel this year going into Big Ten Media Day with this Indiana basketball team.
Well, one of the things I noticed from some of the videos from Hoosier Hysteria, some of the comments at Indiana's Media Day through this Big Ten Media Day, and when Jim talked to Race and Trace at Big Ten Media Day up in Minnesota, Kyler, was this team seems to have, to your point, kind of the new attitude, but I feel like they're a little bit more comfortable in their own skin, and I think that trickles down from their head coach. I mean, they feel like they can be themselves a little bit more than maybe in the previous regime. I mean, are you kind of getting that same sense that these guys feel a little bit more comfortable with who they are? And I think that alone breeds more confidence to these guys when they step on the floor. And it's not, you know what, we're going to be ourselves out there. We have somebody as our head coach who's not going to pull us if we miss a couple shots, or we're not going to have a short lease if we make a mistake or two in the ball game. I mean, do you get that same sort of sense?
Yeah, I mean, the chemistry, if you compare it from this point last year to this year, I mean, I think it's just night and day. And I think it was even Trace, they even talked about it, how like last year, throughout the season, they're still trying to figure out each other. They're trying to work, it's a new team. They were trying to, build a relationship. But I mean, they had all year, especially that run at the end where it finally clicked with all of them. It finally clicked. They learned how to play as a team, and they got Woodson. They believe in him. Woodson's a typical player's coach, but he's also going to hold you accountable as well. I just think they got the core back. They're all really good friends. They all know how to play off each other. That freshman group, they've even talked about it. They come in and they fit right in, especially with the 5 stars that came in. Malik and Jalen, like those guys are ready. They're mature right now, but the team chemistry is at an all-time high right now, and I think that translates into them being very confident. They still view themselves as the hunters, which is a great mindset in my opinion with that. So, it's lining up for special things this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think that this league is going to be more crowded at the top than people think. We hear a lot. Indiana's getting a lot of the talk. Partly is because they haven't been up there for a while, and that's one of the things I did ask the other coaches. What does it mean? And they don't like to talk about other programs, but like Tom Izzo is probably the best. But it's you want the good teams to be good. The Big Ten needs Indiana basketball to be good. Period. College basketball needs Indiana basketball to be good. It's not, they don't depend on it, obviously, because they haven't been great for a long time, but it's better when they are. That's why these networks are always chasing Indiana and programs like that, marquee programs. Even when Indiana is, not been, they're still being sought after for these various big time games or the yearly things that the Michigan States and those guys play in, Ohio States. That was actually, they wanted Indiana, but because of the Crossroads Classic, they couldn't play in one of these things. But now, as you can see, their schedule is loosening up with the addition of Arizona, Kansas, and the talk of Kentucky. I asked Mike Woodson about that. We'll play that clip later, but then there's been more talk about it. But when I asked him, and I asked him specifically on a timeline, was the quickest he thought this could happen. He said, hopefully the next 2 seasons, which would make sense even if they sign something, because I can see this replacing the Kansas game, which is a 2-year home and home deal. And sign it now and you implement it then, that would be right on par. But Indiana is ramping up everything they're doing, which is exactly what they need to do. It's like it was when when Mike Woodson played, but that's part of why they were always in that conversation. They're always playing those teams. Under Archie, they're playing App State and all these 200 and 300 teams that just doesn't do anything for your team or your program, I don't think.
Right. And I think Mike Woodson, is a big part of that. He came in with the mindset, he's tired of seeing Indiana being so lackluster. He's tired of seeing them getting jumped over for these big games or whatever. And he has this vision. Obviously, his goal, he came back for 2 reasons: win a Big Ten championship, win the national championship. But he's also wanting to put Indiana back on the map as far as on a national level. And I agree with you completely, 100%. College basketball is better when Indiana is at the top up there.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm not
I hate this take. Continue your thought, Kyler.
Watch this. Take. Dustin's been muted. I have that power.
But yeah, no, Indiana, I mean, they're ramping up, like you just mentioned. They're going to get these big games. It's about time that these Kentucky games, got kind of fired up again. Hopefully they can nail that, especially also adding Louisville as well. That would be another big one. It's time for them to start playing those rivalries. And, Indiana, I think from a national level is only going to grow from this point on.
So, Dustin, you disagree with that?
It's the same sport. The sport does not change. College basketball does not change no matter who's good. The sport does not change.
I'm not saying
all that matters.
I'm saying it benefits.
You just said college basketball is better, which it's not. It's the same. It just means more casual fans watch it. That's the only difference.
Why? And why?
But why does it matter if Indiana's good? Why do you care?
Well,
why does anybody care if Indiana's good other than the casual fan?
Wait a minute. Why would more casual fans be watching? More. You said the key word. More casual fans.
Right.
Because if you're drawing a bigger audience, there's a reason you're drawing a bigger audience, and that is the very reason I'm talking about.
Okay, but that has no effect on the actual basketball being played. The sport is the exact same. If you put the same
I was
players,
not talking about the quality of play on the floor. I was talking
You're talking about
the game in general.
College basketball is more popular when Indiana is better, maybe.
Semantics. We're into semantics now.
That's
Holy
right.
moly. Kyler, what's the latest on recruiting? Arrington Page committed to USC. He was basically the 3rd straight big recruit Indiana, I don't want to say missed on, didn't get. I would have thought for sure that they would have gotten one out of those 3. But then once you really start examining a lot of those things, the other 2, the connection they have living around Maryland, it's much more understandable. Arrington Page, that one just really kind of went in different directions there at the end.
Yeah, I think you can officially close the book on the recruiting of 2023, unless something pops up towards the end of next year around the spring, if there's a late addition or somebody like that. But now, Indiana's solely focused on the 2024-2025 group right now. Hoosier Stereo was a big recruiting event for them last week, and from who Alec and I have talked to, it was perfect. It was just an A+ event for those recruits. I talked to Riley Burgess, 2024 center. I've been talking to him throughout the week. He said he enjoyed it. He loved it. It's just a great atmosphere. It was something else for him. And he's still frequently talking to Indiana. The relationship still as strong as what it is. So, but no, those recruits, all that were there at Hoosier Stereo, seemed to really enjoy it. They had a really good visit. It was a great weekend for them, and I think Indiana knocked it out of the park with this event.
And Floyd Badunga, just for people to understand why he's not coming to Indiana. Most it is probably a 5% chance. I'll leave him a 5% chance because never say never. You never know what could happen, but it is a coach. It's a relationship thing, and that relationship is with a coach that is at Cincinnati. Now, also, Cincinnati is going to be loaded. They are killing it on the recruiting trail as well.
Yeah, Wes Miller's done a great job there, and so is Mike Roberts. All the events that I go out there, the EYBLs, the Adidas circuit, all them. When there's a live period, I always see Mike Roberts there. He's just done a great job bringing in these Indiana kids and recruiting them. Flory, it does look like 75% right now, in my opinion, Cincinnati, but Indiana's going to stay active. Louisville, Kentucky just offered him. Those schools are going to be active with this guy because you have to. He's a program changer. And Flory's still doing all these visits. I think he's trying to set up one with Louisville right now. But I talked to Raleigh, who was his AAU teammate for Indiana Elite this year. He said him and Flory both had a great time at the event.
Well, how could you not have a great time? Because
right.
you're not going to get that anywhere else.
Right. Yeah. And it was funny because, after the event, the G Herbo concert, I see Raleigh and Flory, they were down in the kind of little, I don't want to call it a mosh pit, but just kind of near the stage and everything, soaking it in. That's just awesome for those kids, for Indiana to modernize that event. They just did a great job. But, back to Flory, it's going to be, Indiana's going to be active until they feel like, this is not really worth our time anymore.
Dustin?
We've talked about Indiana casting a pretty wide net, but do you think that they need to hone in and focus on some of these big time players? Like, what do you think is the better approach here? I feel like we've disagreed on this in the past, but is it better right now for Indiana to cast a wide net and to kind of put the feelers out for a lot of players, or do they need to hone in? I feel like they've paid a lot of attention to some guys, and it hasn't worked out for them. What method would you say has worked best for them?
So I say a little bit of both, and here's why. They've casted a wide net. Probably like 3 weeks ago, it was just offer after offer after offer for the 2024s, 25s. So they're doing that, but at the same time, they're also honing in on guys like Liam McNeely, Derek Queen, those 2024s who they recruited hard last year. They were one of the first teams to really just recruit those guys, and they've stayed strong with them. Liam McNeely, Derek Queen, they both had really good visits with Indiana. But so they're kind of doing a little bit of both, in which I feel like they have to. Next year around the springtime, when the recruiting trail gets going again and they can go out and see these guys, that's when you'll see Indiana focus a little bit more on different guys, the guys that they cast the wide net on. The 2025 is a little different. I think they're just going to continue to cast the wide net, focusing on guys like Jalen Harrelson, Trent Sisley, but they're just going to continue to add players, add offers and everything, which that just seems to be Woodson's approach. And when they figure out okay, we definitely want this guy, they're going to be on him until the very end.
And here's another thing that I asked Alec about this, I think last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. I'll get your opinion on it too, is when you talk about sending out a lot of offers, meeting with a lot of and watching a lot of guys play, is there a mentality, and maybe you don't have the answer to this, but is there a mentality that we need to make an impression? Because if some of these guys end up hitting the transfer portal at some point, to me, that's a factor. That's something you wouldn't have thought about probably 3 to 5 years ago. But now let's try to get the impression of Indiana in as many kids' heads as possible, because if they do enter the transfer portal, we might be in contention for that. Is that a thought that crosses any of the staff's mind or any staff in the recruiting field?
It's definitely a good idea in theory. I don't know if that crosses their minds, but in life in general, building connections is, where it gets you farther in life.
Sure.
So, I mean, those guys, they can build that relationship with those players. Let's say it's, we'll use Arrington Page for an example. He goes to USC. He's like, you know what? This isn't working out for me or whatever. He hits the transfer portal. Oh, Indiana's looking for another whatever. Like, I had a good relationship with them moving forward. That's just an extreme example right there.
Right.
But I mean, it's totally possible in my opinion. And I think you'll see a little bit more of that. I would love to actually go through all the transfers this past year and see, like, the school that they're at now, was that school actively recruiting them or was it not? So, I mean, I like that theory. I like that thought. I think it certainly can happen.